All right, guys, I am going to quickly go over the updated rankings here for the college football top 25. What an absolute mess that was. We got the whole Michigan State thing. I mean, I like Michigan State basketball. I like the Izzone. I like all of it, but that was a big charade that lasted about an hour longer than it should have. But we finally get the rankings. Of course, it's always the same top four. This is exactly what we expected. All of these top four teams won their games, and they all covered, I believe. Yes, obviously, because TCU was 7-point underdogs. So it's Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 2, Michigan 3, and TCU at number 4. The exact same. And guys, these probably aren't going to change. The only possible scenario this next week we could see is TCU losing to Baylor. They're only 2.5-point road favorites. Ohio State and Michigan, all but guaranteed. Unless a crazy upset happens, maybe Michigan loses to Illinois. We're looking at a 2v3 matchup between Ohio State and Michigan, and the expected line on that game is Ohio State -7. Those are the top four. You have Tennessee at 5. You have LSU at number 6. You know, we can have the conversation if LSU wins out, do they get in with 2 losses? But guys, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think they have any chance at beating Georgia, so I'm just not even going to go there. I'm not even going to go there. Tennessee, we know exactly what they're doing. They know they have to win these games and win them by a big margin. They beat Missouri by 70 or whatever. They crushed them, scored 60 points. They're sitting at number 5. They're in a good spot right now. But I will say this is a situation, they think the loser of Ohio State and Michigan automatically drops below them. I agree if we're talking about Michigan losing to Ohio State, but I do see a situation where retroactively, if Notre Dame wins out, Ohio State, even if they lose a close game to Michigan, they might get in at the 4 spot, and that sets up a Georgia-Ohio State 1v4 matchup and a Michigan-TCU 2v3 matchup. And the reason I say that is because Ohio State's resume, if Penn State wins out and if Notre Dame wins out and beats USC, you're talking about 2 top 12 wins. It is impressive, and also their game metrics, their defense blows Tennessee out of the water. That's one of the main issues with Tennessee. They have a below average defense in terms of playoff potential teams, kind of similar to TCU. But right now, if you are Tennessee, what you want Ohio State to beat Michigan. Michigan does not have the resume. They don't have the non-conference win to be in front of you. And then you would also like TCU to lose as well, just to make sure if you are Tennessee. And then taking a look at the rest of the rankings, you have USC sitting at number 7. So they are, the one team from the Pac-12. You can make an argument, the one-loss team. If they win out, are they in no matter what? I think they are. You look at their schedule, you look at how it sets up, they've got really bad metrics, but overall, I think there's less than a 5% chance they win out, but if they're able to do it, you're talking about a win against Notre Dame. You're talking about beating UCLA on the road. That's a top 20 win. You're talking about possibly beating Utah in the Pac-12 championship game. That's a top 15 win. Your resume gets so much better. And it might become an argument of a one-loss Michigan versus a one-loss USC versus a one-loss TCU. Let's say TCU loses to Baylor this week, but then wins the Big 12 championship. That could be a big debate and a big mess right there. So really right now, what we're waiting on, what is TCU going to do this week against Baylor? If they lose, how far do they drop? Do they still have a chance if they rebound and win the Big 12 championship game and pick up another quality win? That's all interesting. It's all intriguing. You have Alabama at number 8. There were a few people on the show that were kind of critical of Bama being ranked 8th. I mean, I don't know, who do you put Clemson in front of them? I don't know. Clemson is still sitting there with 1 loss. They do have a solid offense and defense. I think they're top 30 in both offense and defense. That's what you like if you're talking about playoff teams. You're talking about complete teams. Clemson's main issue, the schedule being in the ACC, and also the quarterback uncertainty. At the end of the day, these are not computer algorithms that are ranking these teams. So they're going to see the Clemson quarterback situation with DJ. He's gotten benched. He's struggled. I think he's gotten benched in 2 games now. So that is not a good situation. The committee is not going to like that. And putting in a Clemson against a Georgia, that's got a 31-6 game written all over it. Maybe TCU loses 31-6 as well, but I'm just saying I don't see a path for Clemson right now. You would need TCU losing 2 games, USC dropping another game. Then you're talking a 1-loss Clemson versus a 1-loss Michigan. Right? So maybe it's there, but it'd be very surprising. And then Utah at number 10. I completely agree. I think Utah needs to be thought of very highly in terms of these rankings. They're a really good team. You've got Penn State. Penn State and Utah are like yin and yang. The way they're playing, the way they're winning, it is so impressive right now, guys. They're at number 11. They're up 3 spots. Oregon drops to 12. I think that's about right. Oregon is still a good football team. North Carolina up to number 13. So that is kind of big for Clemson. I mean, if you're Clemson, you want North Carolina to keep winning as much as possible. So if you beat them, they don't drop too far, and that's still a good win for you guys. That is a positive development for Clemson. Because otherwise, let's say North Carolina loses their drop, they move back down to like 22nd. That would not have been good. You've got Ole Miss at 14. Kansas State sitting at 15. They've kind of got an outside chance at making a New Year's Six Bowl. I've seen several different websites predict them into a New Year's Six Bowl. UCLA back down to number 16. Of course, they will vault way back up if they are able to beat USC. That's such an unfortunate loss against Arizona. They come in as 20-point favorites. Chip Kelly has that team humming. And, Arizona has a good offense. They do. I think UCLA is a very good team. Washington at number 17. This is the depth of the Pac-12, and I'm so surprised none of the analysts on ESPN talked about the actual depth of the Pac-12 conference because, yes, there's probably no playoff team, but you're talking about 4 or 5 teams in the top 17. This is a deep, deep conference. I think, what do they have? 5 teams inside the top 17. If you're talking about Utah, Oregon, UCLA, Washington. So they have a very deep conference. Notre Dame sitting at number 18. That's huge for Ohio State. They move up 2 spots. The Navy game was a little bit, the score was not. The score, it was a blowout and then it got close late, whatever. It was a good win for Notre Dame. Florida State, they're on a warpath. Florida State's playing really well right now. They're up to 19. I think they're playing like a top 15 team. UCF, I thought that was a little disrespectful. I would have liked to see UCF up a little bit more. But honestly, I would not put UCF in front of Notre Dame or Florida State, so I don't even know what I'm thinking. Honestly, like teams like Ole Miss, I know Ole Miss only has 2 losses, but I don't really like Ole Miss this year. Oklahoma, then you've got Tulane. Tulane, there's some respect for Tulane, only down to 21. They only dropped 4 spots. Oklahoma State is 22. I think they're just running out of teams to rank at this point. Oregon State gets a shout out. NC State is still ranked after losing as 20-point favorites against Boston College. And then Cincinnati with a shout out at number 25. So that is the full rankings overall right now. I think when it comes to this week, we're watching. USC might be eliminated. If USC loses as 2.5-point favorites, they're eliminated. If TCU loses, this is going to open up some spots. This could open the door wide open for Tennessee. If you get the Pac-12 out of the playoff picture, if USC loses, TCU loses, Tennessee would certainly, even if TCU wins their conference championship, a 1-loss Tennessee is going to be in front of them due to their big wins, due to their strength of schedule, and due to their overall game metrics advantage. When you're talking about that, where it gets really interesting is if you have a team like Ohio State who loses to Michigan by 3. They have extremely strong game metrics, game control, strength of schedule, 2 ranked wins, Notre Dame and Penn State. And then you're possibly doing an argument where it's like Ohio State versus maybe TCU if they're a 1-loss team, maybe a 1-loss Tennessee. that's where it gets interesting. I think if Michigan loses to Ohio State, it's going to be very hard for Michigan to make the playoff unless, I just don't see how a one-loss Michigan is in front of a one-loss Tennessee. And the main problem for Michigan is the strength of schedule because of the non-conference. It's weighing down their strength of schedule so much. So that is the update on the whole playoff situation here tonight. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.